It's time again for another installment of The Basics, and on today's show I want to talk about how to deal with defeat in regards to Magic the Gathering. And much like I did in a similar episode using the Star Trek CCG, I want to describe questions that you have to ask about yourself and your deck after a bitter loss in this game. So let's get started, shall we? Now, no matter how you look at it, losing sucks. It's terrible. It can damage your ego, it can frustrate you, it'll make you want to take your stack of cards and throw them against a wall. That won't solve your problems, and neither will completely tearing the deck apart. Sometimes it's as simple as making a few tweaks. I'm going to explain those tweaks you may or may not need to make, and I will put it as a series of questions you need to ask after the defeat, starting with, how big is the deck? If it's less than 60 cards, you have a problem. There's not enough there to do its job. If there's way more than 100 cards, the deck is too big and it's taking you too long to get everything out. You want to find that happy space, which is between 70 and 90 cards. That is the medium that you'd want to use in this case. Next question. Instants and sorceries. Do you have the right type of instants and sorceries or enough of them in your deck? Using my own green deck as an example, I use, I would say, 4 or 5 different instants and sorceries, but I have multiples and or quads, and they all do certain things that enhance my creatures, such as target creature gains +3/+3 or +2/+2. The other instants and sorceries I use destroy artifacts and enchantments of my opponents, because as I'm growing my creatures, I want to deal damage to him and get rid of his enhancements or his special cards. Creatures are a big one. Do you have the right kind of creatures in this deck? Are some creatures too big and cost too much mana to bring out? Do they take a while? Do you have too many limited creatures like 1/1s that, sure, they only cost 1 land to bring out, but they're pretty much useless past a certain part of the game? Again, there's a happy medium you have to find, the right balance of creatures. You don't want too many heavy hitters that take forever to get out, and you don't want too many weak creatures that are a liability after a certain amount of time has passed. Artifacts. Do the artifacts in your deck complement your deck or hinder it? Or better yet, do you have enough artifacts in your deck to be effective? And what do they do? I use a series of different artifacts, depending of course on the color my opponent's using, or artifacts that allow me to draw an extra card, or they enchant my creatures, or they help me choose a color to add mana to my pool when I need it. Which brings me to the last question. How much mana is in your deck? Now, you've heard me say on previous episodes of the show how important mana is and why the happy number for mana is around 35% in any deck. You can go a little higher or a little lower, but too little mana and you don't have enough to cast anything. Too much mana and that's all you're drawing in your hand is mana, which is completely useless. If you draw 7 cards as your opening hand and you have about 50% mana in your deck, you're probably going to have 5 or 6 cards of that opening hand as mana. Not good. 35%, that is the happy medium. All of that adds up to whether or not your deck is going to be successful or not the next time around. Now, that being said, the biggest problem you're going to face in a deck, especially after you lose, is either the amount of mana or the number and type of creatures you have in your deck. Those are the 2 biggest hurdles that you have to overcome. So when I'm saying that you have to pay attention to the amount, type, and cost of the creatures in your hand, as well as the percentage of mana, I'm not kidding. Ask anyone that plays Magic the Gathering, they will tell you the exact same thing. Have a great day, everybody.